All right, everybody, here we go. This will be warning all politicians running for president 2024. We'll call this 143. First, I want to apologize for my language and some of the previous ones, as really hit home that this whole thing could be orchestrated because they want to continue on with wars. Now, to some people that might seem way out there, conspiracy theory, but history does support it. John F. Kennedy goes through the Cuban Missile Crisis, is approached by people in the CIA and stuff who want to do these wacky things like set off false flag things. Some of you might have heard of Northwoods, I think it was called, and all this types of stuff. They want to use it to start war with Russia. He fires a lot of them. Doesn't want to get involved anymore in the Vietnam. They whack him. Their boy, Lyndon Baines. I'm not going to send American boys to do what Vietnamese boys ought to be doing for themselves. Johnson takes office. Next thing you know, we have the Gulf of Tonkin, and we're full-blown into Vietnam. And we also had Korea. Korea, was more of a UN, deal, supposed to just stop aggression, stop the carnage, stop the war going on in Korea. I'm sure there's things that were hinky there, but you can look at I'm sure in the 70s, because we were involved in the Middle East in different places all through the 70s. A lot of that's all forgotten stuff. We propped up Saddam Hussein. We overthrew democratic election. The CIA overthrew a democratic election in Iran. On behalf of the British and British Petroleum. Sadly, that was during Eisenhower's time, and for him to be either lockstep with that or duped by them or what have you, it's sad either way. But because he was one of the, I think, better presidents, and he did warn the people when he left office. If you've never seen it, watch his farewell speech about the military-industrial Congress complex and the massive buildup of arms, which Kennedy also warned. We must never use, he gave a speech, we must never use, our might and our power. We, never abuse it and stuff, so they up and whacked him and put somebody else in office. Then we have, John McCain was leading the primaries, doing fairly well. George Bush said he was happy to be governor down there in Texas, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they got him up and running. And he becomes the nominee. And even you go to Reagan, Bush Sr. wasn't, he wasn't too keen on Bush Sr., but they got to him somehow, and next thing you know, when he announces on the platform that Bush Sr. is going to be the VP, and maybe Reagan wouldn't do some of the stuff they wanted to do, so maybe that's why he got whacked, or they tried to whack him, I mean. But he survived, so what were they supposed to do? So they wait till Bush Sr. But during that Reagan time and everything, you know, you had the Iran-Contra, you had the drug running with Oliver North and all that, which then ties into the Clintons. Just so much corruption and so much bullshit going on. And you know, this isn't, you know, in the verse in the Quran about on Judgment Day, man will find out how much they were deceived in the war. It's not just indicative to the United States. It's a, you know, something that's plagued most of the nations on the face of the earth, I'm sure. If not all of them. You know, Hitler deceived his people. So, you know, and Biden, you know, he has said, you know, he's gonna undo everything Trump did. That, you know, no one pressed him on it and said, does that mean, you know, you're gonna send troops back overseas or anything like that? Far be it from the news media in this country to ask a hard question. You know, and like they say, they want full spectrum dominance. So, you know, I mean, that means they're going to control both parties one way or another. They're going to control all the news media one way or another. Like they say, wag the dog. But the scary thing is, you know, I said this in one of the other videos, and I showed that sign that had the nuclear explosion and said dead end. And, you know, it was prophesized by Baha'u'llah that this new form of energy that would be a serious threat and a weapon and stuff. So, you know, they got us all busy with global warming and all that kind of junk. Oh, it's a threat to us 100 or 1,000 years from now, whatever it is. And there's thousands, tens of thousands of nuclear warheads, mostly between us and the USSR, or Russia, not the USSR anymore. And nobody's worried about, you know, some type of accident. We can't have nuclear power because, oh, there might be an accident. But nobody's worried about these subs in ports, the missiles in silos. And there's been more accidents with nuclear weapons. What do they call it? I don't know if that was just a movie title or if that's what they really call it. Broken Arrow. Something happens, a nuke goes missing, or they have a plane crash that has one on them. There have been a few of those. They had one that blew up in a silo in Arkansas. How many of you know that? Thankfully, the warhead didn't go off, but all the fuel and everything blew up. It would have vaporized Little Rock, Arkansas if it went off. How many of you are aware of that? See, but the media and everybody pushes all that back for some reason, you know? You don't hear nothing about, and people aren't worried about nuclear bombs or anything. You know, even the whole no nukes movement, most people think it, you know, it was for the bombs, but that was really pushed against nuclear power. So if there's anything we should all be scared of, it's weapons of mass destruction. It's nuclear bombs. And now look, they say this virus was created by China in a lab. It's biological weapons. I'm sure they got plenty of chemicals to kill us with. But the number one threat is nuclear. And look here. You know, what's the difference between he's got WMDs and Russia's been messing with our elections? Russia's been hacking our stuff. Russia, you hear this a lot from these people. Russia, Russia, Russia. You know, and Joe Biden's the type, you know, he's from that Cold War mentality. Those evil Russians. You know, and you got China. Maybe China will just sit back and watch these fools get us into a war with Russia, and us and Russia take each other out with nuclear weapons, and China gets to take over the world. I'm sure there's a lot of people on the left in this country who wouldn't mind that at all. Because of all their ties with China. You know, maybe before it all starts, they're all going to get on planes and go to Beijing or someplace. But it's amazing how up in arms people are about quote-unquote climate change and, you know, fossil fuels and all this stuff and everything. But there's enough nuclear bombs to destroy this planet, I don't know how many times over, and they can do it in a day. Nobody's up in arms about that. You should be. Because like I said, it wouldn't take much. They open Pandora's box with these wars and stuff and everything, and they think they're going to contain it and all that, and it gets out of hand. And next thing you know, it's goodbye everything. That should really... Watch that movie, The Road. Or On the Road. Whatever. I think it's just called The Road. You know, in the 50s and all that, you had people, you know, had built bomb shelters in their backyards and in their basements. And you had, you know, civil defense bomb shelters and stuff in town. They were all marked and everything. I don't know what you would do after you come out of a bomb shelter if you build, but it might be a good idea. That might be a thing to think about bringing back if you own a home home somewhere. I mean, I've doing this job, I've met plenty of doomsday preppers. I've taken plenty of materials and old overseas containers and stuff out into the boonies where people have bought land and stuff, and they are preparing for doomsday. And I think we should all seriously pray to God and hope it doesn't happen, and pray for his guidance, and pray for people who are not warmongers to be in control of our countries and to get rid of these weapons. And like I said before, that would be part of my platform, to get rid of nuclear weapons. Of course, there'll be powers to be that wouldn't want that to happen. Probably have to be careful of them starting a war on purpose just to use them, or you know, out of fear the other side would win then, or some shit. But and that's also talking about, you know, I said we need to go high tech with energy and everything. I talked about those fusion reactors and you know, that what do they call them? Mini suns or what have you, where they're reproducing the nuclear energy the way the sun does. And it takes so much heat and pressure that they have to use like these magnetic fields to contain it. And so far, I think like MIT was able to do for like 20 seconds or something, which isn't a lot, but it's a big milestone for what they've been trying to do. Now, if that stuff is unsafe, then we got to stop that. But if it is safe to use or what have you for energy, then, and if it works and all that, then use it. But if it can be weaponized, then we put a stop to that too. If it's something that can be used to destroy civilization and this planet, we put a stop to that too. Just you know, want people to think, you know, there's no way the Democratic Party on its own would be able to have done everything they've done all summer long. And if you look how that compares and mirrors to what they did overseas with the Arab Springs and stuff, to overthrow people over there in Egypt, in Libya, in Syria, wherever. Why don't you think they wouldn't use it here? If Trump was in their way, bringing troops home and saying we're not getting involved in all this stuff anymore, well, then he's got to go, right? For all these people who have these designs on overthrowing nations as part of, you know, Cheney's plan for the new American century, for full spectrum dominance, because they know they had a window. You know, we had the mightiest, you know, we had this top-notch, most advanced military. Nobody in the world can touch us. Now Trump's in the way and slowing it down for them to reach their goals. Well, that gives China and Russia a chance to catch up. So maybe they got to get him out of the way so they can go through with their plans. But I have no doubt that in a year, within a year, there'll either be a false flag or something go on that will give Biden the reason to send troops somewhere. Do something. He'll get us back in something. I have no doubt on that. That's just by going by history. Not saying I can see the future or anything. I'm looking at, you know, it'd be par for the course looking at everything that's happened. You know, how do you secretly get thousands upon thousands of ballots filled out and everything and then brought in and counted? How do you control all the news media all summer long? Put out false stories about cops just, you know, hey, they're just out there hunting people down, getting riots going, and nobody in the news media ever, you know, condemned it. You know, except for, you know, Fox or whatever. But I mean, you know, none of the NBC or anything like that. You know, I mean, you never saw Gayle King or any of them, you know, reporting on something going on and say that's BS. That rioting and looting, that can't happen. You people ought to be ashamed of yourselves. You never heard Don Lemon say that. You know, nobody. In fact, they encouraged it. You know, just the whole charade with George Floyd, the politicians donning the African garb and the funeral and all that stuff and everything. And even now they still say, you know, when a cop killed or cop murdered George Floyd in Minneapolis, I think he just had the unfortunate pleasure of being there while that guy was dying, because he was screaming he couldn't breathe before he ever got on the ground. And they weren't even touching him. And he was full of fentanyl and methamphetamine, so. But they don't want to report all the facts and say there is a possibility this guy didn't kill him. They just want to report it as, you know, the incident, the killing of a black man by a white cop that started a movement to unite this country. You know, they got to sell it. They got to have viewership. They got to have a reason for you to watch. They'll string it out as long as they can. But like I say, they like a good war. They really like a good war. They like getting embedded, man. That became the thing with the first, you know, hey, war live on TV, watch it. But they don't show you the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of children, women maimed and killed, bodies blown apart. Our soldiers see that and they come back with PSTD, but imagine the women and children and the people living in those countries where that's happened. And right now, like I said, there's tens of thousands of people freezing their asses off in refugee camps all over the place from the military actions that have taken place since 2005. It's like Trump said when he ran. How much longer are we going to do this? How much longer are we going to stay over here and over there and everything else? And how much longer are we going to stay there? Started bringing people home. Started telling, NATO, you people are going to have to start pulling your own weight for your own defense. We're going to start cutting back. Pissed off a whole lot of people in that military-industrial complex all around the world, not just the people in our military-industrial complex. People in the European military-industrial complex, too. And I'm sure there's people in the Russian military-industrial complex that aren't too pleased with it either, because if we cut back and scale all down, people over there are probably going to scale down, too. But I'm telling you, no matter what your religious faith is, no matter what your political party is, your national ideology is, your nation is, I'm telling you now, the real threat to humanity is war and nuclear weapons. You can stay focused on global warming and all that and everything if you want to, but I'm telling you, that is what you should really be afraid of, is war and nuclear weapons. And like I said, you might want to get back to building those shelters. I don't know if they'll do you any good, and I don't know if there'll be anything to come out to if you survive it. But until we come together as one humanity, and stop deceiving people into war, should be very afraid of the people in power who think that, they can just go drop bombs, do whatever they want to all over the place, and there's no consequence. Who can do stuff. And I'm not talking about the military just follows orders. So don't think I'm condemning individuals. I'm talking the politicians are the ultra guilty. You understand that? They go to their $1,000 a plate or $10,000 a plate dinners and stuff while they've got war going on somewhere and people suffering, children being blown to bits, and then they go home from their $10,000 a plate dinner and they go home and they go to bed and they sleep sound. So there's something wrong with their minds, and that's why you should be very worried that they are willing to do whatever it takes, deceive people into going to war while they get rich. They go to their dinners and people suffer all around, and they have no conscience about it. If you're Christian, even your Gospels, it's in there about where do wars come from. And the apostle goes on listing, So I don't think Christians actually are supposed to take part in war. Because it seems to me, if you read what the apostle said, that he was looking at it as an objective, as an outsider. That, they're not taking, they're telling people, look, here, you got to stop your wars. Look what you're doing. And in what you call the Old Testament and everything, it talks about the mighty men of war and this and that and everything. In the Quran, it says God does not love murderers. He does not love the aggressors. And that men will find out how they were deceived in the war. In the Bible, it says those who speak peace to him with their lips, but they are far from him. They divide us constantly against each other. The reasons to hate each other, to fight each other. And like I say, a lot of it's hocus pocus, so they go on doing what they're doing behind the scenes. And starting wars. So, anyhow, I'll leave you all with that to think about. But I'm telling you, seriously, we all need to start worrying about weapons of mass destruction. Very seriously, we need to start worrying about weapons of mass destruction. Because it would not take much for them to get involved somewhere, and then for these yahoos to say, you know what, this is our time. This is our chance. Let's blame a bunch of shit on Russia this time. Let's get into it with Russia. Or whoever. Maybe even China. Hear a lot about China too. And it's no doubt China is on a military buildup. So then they might be thinking, hey, we got to do something quick before they get too much bigger. I'm telling you all. You have more to fear about nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction than you do global warming at this point. You can take that to the bank. I wish you all the best out there. If anything, I hope I make a lot of you think and question what's been going on all year and why would it be going on, and look at our past history on how when there's been an election or an assassination, an election gone wrong or an assassination or something, the person that goes into power, after that, we end up in wars. So, wish you all the best out there. God bless. I hope you give some serious thought to everything. And we'll catch you on the next one. Adios.